A striking modern example of a genuine magician can be seen in the mysterious personality of Dr. Czesław Cieszynski, a Polish-born occultist and hypnotist who died in Warsaw about 1933. A descendant of a noble family, Cieszynski possessed amazing hypnotic abilities, which he developed still further by his occult studies. However, he used his powers for very egotistic aims, so that his contemporaries called him a black magician. Here I will give only some of the most striking facts of his life and activities. Long before the First World War, Cieszynski lived in Germany, teaching and practicing chiromancy and hypnotism. From this period we have his well-compiled booklet about palmistry, published by a German barber, presumably an acquaintance of Cieszynski, who otherwise had no interest in it. In the meantime, Cieszynski used his powers to lure into marriage a German princess, who was a close relative of Kaiser William II. The aim was obviously the money of the not-so-young aristocratic woman, who was charmed by the impressive personality of the handsome, young magician. But the imperial house of Hohenzollern could not countenance such a disgraceful state of affairs, and so Cieszynski was charged with treachery, illegal use of hypnotic powers, and deception. This resulted in a few years spent in Mobit prison in Berlin, connected with permanent banishment from Germany and annulment of the marriage. The magician then went to St. Petersburg, the then Russian capital, and became active in Russian occult circles, mostly in an aristocratic and wealthy environment. During this period of his life, there came the most amazing test of Cieszynski's abilities. A Polish engineer by name of Gilowitz conceived the idea of getting rich quickly. He insured his life in the name of his wife for 100,000 rubles, then worth about 10,000 sterling, a fortune in itself. Some months later, a mutilated and scalped male corpse, together with Gilowitz's passport and other belongings, was found in a second-class Warsaw hotel room. The face was so badly damaged that it was unrecognizable, even by the murdered man's relatives. The first verdict was that it was the engineer Gilowitz, whose clothes and other belongings were readily identified by his widow. The insurance company was ready to pay the huge sum to her, when a family from the country claimed that their son, a young student of Warsaw University, had been missing since Gilowitz's death. The police allowed the mother to see the mutilated body in the morgue, and the unhappy woman immediately recognized her son by a deformed toe. Now the whole position became clear, and a hunt began for Gilowitz throughout the whole of Russian territory, but without any results. The murderer had had plenty of time in which to disappear. The case came to the knowledge of the Tsar himself, who summoned the imperial chief of police and told him to find the criminal, otherwise he would be removed in disgrace from his position. The chief of police was desperate, until some friends advised him to seek the help of Dr. Cieszynski, who was famous in occult circles for his travels in his exteriorized astrosome and the phenomena connected with it. The somewhat reluctant magician was finally tempted by the police chief's offer of 500 rubles. He took some objects belonging to Gilowitz, left the chief and his assistants in his lounge, and retired alone into the adjoining bedroom, asking not to be disturbed for some 15 minutes. At the end of this time, he appeared again looking very pale and exhausted. He told the policeman the name of a well-known Parisian hotel, stating that Gilowitz was hiding there under a false name and wearing a beard. He was usually clean-shaven. Immediately, a telegram was sent to the French police, giving the particulars mentioned by Cieszynski. Everything was exactly as described, and the murderer was arrested in Paris that same evening. But, nevertheless, he cheated the noose. While being led downstairs by the French sûreté men, he asked permission to be allowed to go to the lavatory. Suddenly, the policeman waiting by the door heard a heavy thud as of a falling body. Gilowitz lay dead on the floor with a contorted face, and there was a strong smell of bitter almonds, cyanide, in the room. His false beard had come away from his chin. The concierge said that some hours before the police came, a tall, handsome gentleman with unusually piercing eyes appeared before him as if from the air. In a foreign accent, he asked the official about a man with a large black beard, giving an exact description of the disguised Gillouettes. When the concierge gave him the name of the guest, the gentleman disappeared as quickly as he had come, but no one saw him pass through the exit door onto the boulevard. The description fitted Szynski exactly. So Szynski got his 500 rubles from the Russian police, and his fame grew even more. The last performance of the magician, known to me, was less ethical. The ground floor level of his house was occupied by a dressmaker with a large establishment. This lady, who was well known in Warsaw, was Szynski's tenant of long standing. After World War I, homes in the big cities became scarce, and large sums for key money were collected by owners from new tenants. Szynski then got the idea of getting rid of the dressmaker and obtaining a high price for her flat. Of course, the woman refused to move, pointing out that she was paying the rent regularly according to the law, and therefore could not be deprived of accommodation in Szynski's house. But the hypnotist was implacable. "You will move in 3 days, dear lady, and with much more trouble than if you agree peacefully with my request." He was right. For every night the poor woman saw the angry figure of Szynski, coming to her bed surrounded by a strange and fearsome light, and ordering her to quit immediately, otherwise threatening her with all kinds of disasters, including death. After the first midnight visit by Szynski, she asked her husband and son to keep watch in her bedroom, and not to sleep until dawn. All was useless, because the men felt an irresistible tiredness and fell asleep just before the time of the apparition, thereby being of no help. The police officially refused to accept any complaint against Szynski, as the law does not recognize apparitions. However, a police official went privately to Szynski and tried to dissuade him from persecuting the hapless lady, but the magician took a formal, icy attitude, asking whether there was anything in the penal code which spoke about female hysteria, and so on. The official had to leave without any result from his mission. The dressmaker left the house. A couple of years before Szynski's death, I tried to visit him so as to chat about some practical use of the Hermetic teachings, but the only way to see him was by acquiring a ticket to have one's fortune told by him, as he took up the profession in his last years of his life. He did not accept visitors under any other conditions. Having no choice, I arranged such a session and called on him in the company of one of my friends. We were both members of an active occult lodge. We had to buy the blue triangular ticket some weeks in advance, stating exactly the day and hour of the visit. Szynski received us with a cold and stiff attitude. I saw an old, but quite virile man, with a very expressive and rather handsome face, long white hair and mustache, and without any trace of baldness. The features and strong chin spoke of willpower and self-possession beyond anything I had seen previously in other occultists. He flatly refused to speak about anything except our palms. Our assertions that we had nothing to do with any official organizations and only wanted to ask him to explain to us some complicated questions, which we then could not solve by our own efforts, were of no use. Incidentally, what we wanted to know concerned the technique of the conscious and full exteriorization of the astrozone. But the eyes of Szynski, piercing and full of a weird light, looked at us without any emotion or sympathy. It seemed as if they were saying to us, "Let me do what you paid for, and leave me alone." The atmosphere created was so unpleasant that we preferred to leave without availing ourselves of the opportunity of hearing anything about the future, written on our palms, from that strange man. The only other things we could see in the large room, half darkened by the deep red lampshade covering the light on the large table, were some strange-looking, heavy chests of old dark wood, covered with oriental carvings, standing along the walls. Until he retired into the fortune-telling profession, Szynski led a group of pupils, to whom he apparently taught occult tricks and secrets for quite good money. After his death, some of them were accused of Satanism and the illegal use of hypnosis. But, as far as I know, no conviction was ever pronounced in a court.